We're almost
I'm
live.
just authorizing Twitter here.
Okay. Yeah, all right. Well, while you're doing that, let me say who we are. I'm Vance Stevens in Al Ain, UAE, and every Sunday at about this time we do something called Learning Together, and this happens to be Sunday, October 19th, 2014. And we're talking here with Dave Wynette and Robert Walkman, two old friends of mine. And Dave is going to tell us about pop-up Chinese, which is something that he says has a very unique way of teaching languages, which of course could translate out to what we do in our profession. And let's see, was I going to say something else about it? I don't know. I'll just let David take it from there.
Thank you, Vance, and good to see you, Robert, and anybody else who may watch this at some future date.
That's right. I was going to mention that this is being streamed live at webheadsinaction.org/live. So may or may not be anybody in the stream right now. Incidentally, in case there was, I don't know if there is or not, we don't know who's in the stream, but if I'll mention from time to time that there is a direct link to the Hangout at webheadsinaction.org/live, and go there, click on the link to the Hangout, and join us.
Okay, very good.
I'm done.
All right. Well, my name is David Wynette, and I'm learning Chinese. The only problem there is first, I'm lazy, and secondly, I'm very easily bored. Regular classroom instruction doesn't seem to work for me anymore. Guess I've passed that age. And also, Chinese is hella hard, as we say in California. So I was quite thrilled when I found a couple of China-based online, I guess we'd call it CSL, Chinese as a second language, sites that made the process a lot less painful while remaining quite useful and, I think, productive in terms of language learning. You might be wondering what Chinese has to do with teaching English. I'm presuming that most of you are either teaching English or are associated with teaching English in some way. Let me try to answer that briefly. I want to present one of these Chinese language learning sites today with, as Vance just suggested, the idea that the method could be adapted to teaching English in the future. In fact, I have found something already in existence, something along those lines called Culips.com, but I think it needs some serious tweaking to be as excellent as these two Chinese sites are. But I don't know if what I typed in earlier is going to show up in the chat box, Vance. I typed those URLs at the top.
Yes, popupchinese.com and ChinesePod.com, an old friend, and then Culips.com, C-U-L-I-P-S.com. Okay, now what do you... I'm going on another computer. I might bring them up on a separate screen if you wanted to show them.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. Okay. Well, you might want to check those out after my talk. But what I'd like to start with today is get down and dirty right away and have you all listen to a sample lesson from my favorite site, which is called popupchinese.com. Because I think listening to the one sample lesson, I believe it's about 7 or 8 minutes, is the best way to give you the look and feel of how this works and show you how different it is. We can discuss it after. How different it is from standard classroom teaching. Was there a question?
No? I don't know. How are we going to catch the video? I don't know if we can put it here in the. It's going to be a gap in the log here. There's a YouTube. Is it on YouTube? Because there's a YouTube app. Let me see if I can.
I think if. Well, I think listeners can punch it up in their browser with the address at the top there, tiny.cc/webheadchinese1. It should bring up one lesson in pop-up Chinese.
Okay. Meanwhile, I started a YouTube app. You might be able to find it. Oh, and maybe I could put the. Is this on YouTube or just in that?
No, it's a website.
Oh, okay. All right. So I'm copying the link address and.
Yeah, Webhead Chinese 1.
Okay.
It should pop up to a pop-up Chinese page that says Absolute Beginners Love Triangle.
Okay. I'm having trouble finding pasting it to the text checker. I guess because the other app is running, that's why.
It may ask you to log in, and so I can give you my login, which worked for me on 2 computers simultaneously, so hopefully it would work for everyone.
Yes, sorry, I was fiddling around with that app. So this is where we need to go.
Right, and here's the login. If it asks you to log in, you can log in as not_ants and with the password XIOJNICG.
Okay. This giants are not ants. As David once upon a time was challenged who said
have an amazing memory.
The giants were ants. So well, that's David's handle now, not ants.
They're certainly not ants now. The World Series.
All right. Okay, I'm trying to join the. Okay, I'm starting another browser, which generally works best. I'm going to join the Hangout from another browser, and then try to put that. So once I get on in this other browser. Wish I had thought to set this up before we started.
Oh, sorry, Vance. I should have told you.
No worries. No worries. Okay, install Hangouts to get started. Okay. Install plugin.
I was trying to log into the Chatwing thing, but it looks like
Chatwing, huh?
Nobody else is there except you and David, I guess. So there's and it's asking for Facebook, Twitter. Oh, I could do it with Google, huh? That's better.
Okay.
Don't
Sorry,
know what I
I'm
needed.
being delayed because I tried to do this in
somebody else is here.
Okay. Who else have we got here? Michael.
This is Michael.
Michael, possibly from Korea? Is this Michael from Korea? Can you hear us there, Michael? I'm not sure if Michael can hear us.
I see a face.
Well, tell us what we're going to see when we eventually get into this site.
You will see a web page. At the top it says Pop-Up Chinese, and below that it says Absolute Beginners Love Triangle. Then there's some text, and on the right side you'll see a picture of clouds, and underneath that, if this thing is working properly, you will see a start button for an MP3, and that's the key. That's the lesson there, in fact.
Can all of us do this? Can I do this too?
Yes.
Where's the what's the URL to reach there?
I'm going to type it into the chat box here, and again, it's tiny.cc.
Okay. I think I see that still.
Chinese, 1.
Right. Yeah. Vance had that. Okay. Okay. So I guess
Mike Martio is with us. He's in France. Okay.
Yeah.
I've got in. I think.
Hi, Mike.
I'm trying to join from another window. I've got to join. Okay. Now,
yeah, I'm visiting another tab. Absolute Beginners Love Triangle. Good. I didn't have to log in or anything. It says sign in, or do I need to sign in? No.
Well, it depends. Do you see a small box under the picture of clouds that would to activate an MP3
Yes,
audio
I see
file?
that.
Okay, if you got that, then you don't need to sign in.
Don't need to sign in. Okay.
Yeah, as long as
Great.
that's working for you. But if you want to sign in, I did put the my sign in, which I tested it on 2 separate computers simultaneously, and it worked for both. It's not
Well,
underscore ANS. You may find that you want to sign in for to check some of the other stuff that's available.
Okay, I think I've got it up. Oh, hey, it's Dave Wynette is here. Not Dave Wynette, sorry. Wexler. David Wexler is here. How you doing? Maybe he's still getting himself set up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so in my second computer, there's you might have to click on the window to make it big. And is that happening? Do you have pop-up Chinese on that window at Absolute Beginner's Love Triangle? Is that what
Could you ask that question again?
Yeah, if you click on my second window, you see a screen share of is that where we are? Absolute.
There
Yep.
it is.
Okay. Okay.
But
Yes.
it's not
Now,
clickable.
okay. Do I need to sign in?
Well, if
no,
if you see the little MP3 box, then you're okay. You don't need to sign in.
The MP3 box.
Yeah.
This one.
and that's, yeah, that is, that. When I click on that in the Hangout,
well, you clicked on it, but
it comes up.
But
I've got it.
Yeah.
I see you clicked on it, but I doubt we're going to be able to hear what you hear unless you pipe it through your microphone, or you have some other way.
No, unfortunately, we can. Yeah. Okay. So we're listening to apparently. Well, I'm not sure what we're listening to. I've got the mic on in my ears plugged into this Hangout.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the window that we're looking at. So
it is,
and it's playing audio on my other computer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now
well, I believe everybody can play their audio if they just open their browser and go to that URL. Hopefully. Is anybody else able to play the audio?
I'm playing it right now.
Oh, awesome. And it's working?
I hear some music.
Yeah, you'll hear
it's playing
some
through my.
music.
It's actually playing through my computer speakers rather than through my headphones.
So I'm hearing a dialogue in English. Is that what I'm supposed to be
Well,
doing?
there's English and Chinese.
Oh, okay.
It's one of the features of pop-up Chinese.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do you want to tell us what we'll be listening to? Because, I mean, people, what is this dialogue?
This is a short dialogue which contains, first of all, a little skit played by 2 actors. It's very short, about 4 lines, 5 lines. And
that's in Chinese.
And that's in Chinese at, at normal speed. And then there are 2 teachers, one Chinese speaker who also speaks excellent English, and one, I believe he's Canadian, who also speaks Chinese. And that is one of the keys of pop-up Chinese, is to have 2 teachers, one proficient in each language, and they both are interesting and entertaining people. It's sort of like watching a talk show or listening to a talk show on the radio with a couple of presenters who are fun to listen to, irrespective of what they're talking about, whether it's English or whatever. Anyway, so if you listen, what I would like to suggest is that everybody just take 7 or 8 minutes and listen to the whole lesson, and I think after that we can have a discussion about it.
Okay, I am listening in this ear, and I heard a moment ago, I love somebody, but no, you love me, but I love somebody else kind of dialogue.
Right. Exactly
Okay.
right.
And they said that in Chinese, and they repeated it in, or they translated in English.
Right.
I wonder if it's okay if other people could be listening to this, but in that 7 or 8 minutes, could we keep up this going on in the Hangout here? Can you tell me what activities are there apart from the dialogue?
Well, it is primarily based on the dialogue. That is the key element of pop-up Chinese. So it's based on improving more than anything else. All the other skills can be practiced, but it's based on acquiring listening skills and vocabulary first and foremost.
They seem to be discussing the tones right now, so they're explaining.
They may be discussing the tones, yeah. The point about this format is it's presented, I would call it edutainment with an emphasis on the edu. It's more education than entertainment, but it's far more entertaining than the usual classroom lesson, or for that matter, to my mind, the usual online lesson, in that it's very professionally done, it's very slick. The presenters are extremely good at what they do. They're very smooth, and they create a very warm and cozy feeling. If you listen to a lot of these podcasts, you almost feel like you get to know them. And in fact, you can get to know them if you're a premium subscriber. And
how is your learning? Are you actually learning Chinese, or just learning some set expressions, or do you think you're becoming more communicative?
Absolutely.
Are you hearing too much English?
I've even started throwing in the occasional Chinese phrase in my real world ESL classes, and my Chinese students always open their eyes wide and they can't believe I said something in Chinese.
Yeah, you want to try one on here?
Quite thrilled about it. No, not particularly. You have to trust me on that. It has to be something I think of on the. Oh, I'll tell you one good thing. It's 我的天嘛. 我的天嘛. You want to try that? 我的天嘛, which means oh my God.
我的天嘛.
Yeah, it's very useful when the student says something ridiculous.
Yeah, of course, with Chinese you have to be careful because there are all these double entendres based on tones.
Well, that one they seem to understand. My understanding of that is that if you say enough words together, they'll figure out what you're trying to say by and large, even if the tones are all wrong.
I'd like to inform Michael that you're muted in case you want to say something. We welcome discussion here. And David Wexler is going crazy in the chat box.
Okay, let me see. Yeah, well, he's absolutely right. He's absolutely right. I mean, what I want to stress here about this method is that just like a good television presenter or good newscaster, it becomes a very personal experience if you watch enough of these, and it adds something very attractive about learning the language this way. It's not stilted, it's not artificial. It does. It's hard to explain exactly, but it's so far different from the usual just straight pedagogical approach, although there's plenty of that. And I think that online teaching suffers from that limitation usually, in that it's still trying to be like a classroom, and that's not quite, that doesn't quite work. It should be sort of like a classroom, but also sort of like, say, PBS science shows, which are certainly informative, but very, very amusing and engrossing at the same time. And I think Pop-Up Chinese does that quite well for Chinese language learning.
Do you know Mike Marzio, by the way, the guy
Yeah.
in the...
Mhm.
Hi.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mike, hi,
there
how
you
are you?
We can hear you.
Yeah.
Because Mike's an authority on language teaching through media. You might want to just mention a little bit about your work here.
Oh, yeah. I created Real English, a program called Real English back in '94, interactive learning based upon spontaneous street interviews, and it's been going well ever since 1994, and I'm still making new films and new interactive exercises for it, and more online teachers are using it in their sessions on Skype. And I'm just having a great time with it. So
I love your site, Mike. It's
oh,
fantastic.
thank you very much. Who's speaking? I was used to the
That's
other
David.
David. You're the one with the microphone in your eye, practically. Yeah.
Well, otherwise you can hear me breathing. That's why I put it up.
I see. Okay.
But yes,
Sure.
if you want to hear me,
We almost met once about 15 years ago when you were in the tri-state area.
that's quite possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, I know. I've been in, and we've been in touch on occasion, and I don't know if I'm allowed to do this, but I often use your site in class.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, everything is free. The only thing you can't do is create another site with the same name.
Yeah, no fear of that.
Oh, he's had that problem. Anyway, Mike Marzio is pretty popular because they mimic his Facebook account and all kinds of crazy things. But just David, I'd like to know. Let me see. I've got to distinguish Dave and Dave. Dave, do you like to be called David or Dave? Probably Dave.
Which Dave are we talking to?
Okay, the one that just answered must be Dave.
Oh yeah, well people call me Dave quite a bit, and just don't call me late to dinner.
Mm-hmm.
Ouch.
Okay. There, and David is back. Okay, well, we got a Dave and a David. Okay, so you're familiar with Real English, and as many of us might be, I'm sure Robert is, and I'm just wondering, that's an entertaining, sort of an edutaining site, as you put it. Do you think Pop-Up Chinese, how would it compare with Real English as far as, I would imagine Real English would be pretty much all in English, which is one thing that I would like, but in Chinese, I understand you need some crutches. You can't just take it, especially if you're living in California, you can't just go straight into Chinese immersion.
Mm-hmm.
But you think it's successful, so what are the relationships between the two? How would you compare them?
Okay, well, this is strictly off the top of my head because I haven't thought about comparing those two sites. Let me say off the bat that Real English, as I understand it, correct me if I say something really ridiculous, Mike, is based on street interviews. So you have an interviewer and an interviewee. Pop-Up Chinese is much more like a radio show with two hosts, if that makes sense. That you like, your favorite radio show that you like to tune into every day, and you feel very familiar, feels very comfortable, and they always have something interesting to tell you.
Right.
So that's a major difference right there. The
Video
other thing
versus audio?
is it's for monolingual classes. That is, everyone learning through Pop-Up Chinese needs to speak English because the instruction is given in English, the explanations and so on, and the translations are all in English. So it only works for one language group at a time. Now they do have another site, I believe, called Pop-Up Spanish. Again, and that would vanish. But you could pop up anything from any language into any other language using basically the same technique. It's like a radio show, though, I would say.
Okay. Are we going to take out 7 minutes to have that look, or are we not doing that now? Or?
Well, I'm not sure because I guess that doesn't get recorded. Is that right, Vance? That it would be dead time?
I see.
That's right, and you're welcome to do it. In fact, one thing I did was I just got an earbud plugged into my other computer, and I talked to Dave over here and listened to the thing for 7 minutes. That kind of worked for me. I was just trying to keep the conversation going here in the Hangout, so it doesn't work to have 7 minutes of dead space in the recording.
Right. Well, I can talk about it, and people can listen afterwards.
Yes, that's what I did. I just asked questions.
I would strongly encourage you to listen because that's much better than anything I can say to give you a feeling for what this is.
Confusing to listen to that and do this at the same time.
I suppose we're talking about a free demo. Is that right?
All of the MP3, all of the podcasts are free. If you want the extra stuff like the vocabulary list, the transcription with pronunciation at a slower speed, the exercises, they have some exercises where you have to repeat, so there's a speaking component, and you can also sign up actually for tutoring from them individually. So all that stuff is extra, but the yearly price for everything except the tutoring is $100. So it's a pretty good deal, I think. I'm not selling it. I have nothing to do with them commercially. I just like the site. The other thing I wanted to say that's important, besides the fact that it's radio format and that it has 2 teachers and that it's for people who speak English only, rather than a classroom like I usually have with 8 or 9 different nationalities. Some of whom that it wouldn't work for that. It's got to be geared toward people who already speak the language of instruction. But the other thing is that this is geared toward essentially educated 20-something, 30-something, maybe 40-something working adults. I believe it was designed for what they call expats, expatriates working in China, of which there are many, and who usually on the job use English in their companies, but who, obviously they're living in China and they want to learn some Chinese. So the topics tend to be a lot edgier than you'll ever see in a classroom or in a textbook or even in most online.
Edgier in what sense? Like socially, or?
Well, for example, this particular I picked one that's sort of edgy, but in an amusing way. This is about a love triangle. How he loves her, she loves the other guy, and the other guy loves the first guy, something like that. And they're not all that questionable, I should say, but it's amusing enough that people who are educated, people who are adults, can enjoy it, get into it in a way that, I teach listening in the real world, and we have textbooks, and I find the dialogues to be stultifying, frankly. Even when they're fairly interesting, the delivery is not by professionals, and I hate them. So
yeah, I know what you mean.
Everybody knows what I'm talking about. They're not. Whereas this thing is done from the get-go to be very, very professionally done, and there's no particular attempt to imitate classrooms. It's seen from the get-go as an online thing, and I think the Chinese are more in tune with that. Actually, this wasn't designed by Chinese. It was designed by Australians, I believe. But I just think, what's going on in China, they're a little bit more with it in that sense. But, maybe I'm wrong on that. So a little edgier, something that, say, a guy who's working for Morgan Stanley in Beijing wants to learn Chinese, but, it's got to be something that's going to keep his attention. It has to be short. These lessons are always 7 to 8 minutes long, although you can spend a lot more time if you focus on learning the vocabulary, repeating, and so forth. It's up to you. But you can definitely do 7 or 8 minutes a day. It's bite-sized, and if you keep at it, because it's online, the class doesn't end. You can keep at it for years and years and gradually build up your Chinese at the speed that works for you. It's also modular, so there are no particular steps apart from absolute beginner, intermediate. They do have that. I think those are the main things.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm definitely gonna have a look when we're done here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if there's anything else you'd like to put in the web tour, if you just paste it into the text chat, I'll pick it up on my other computer and we can have a look at it if you want. If you have any URLs we'd like to go to see.
Well, if you want to listen to other dialogues after this one, you can just go back to the, if you use no, you don't even need my login apparently. You can just go back and listen to some other dialogues from Pop-Up Chinese, which there are. They've been doing them like several a week since 2007, I think, so there are hundreds and hundreds of them. There is another site, which I guess, Vance, you're familiar with, called Chinese Pod.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. First of all, that was very famous in about 2006 or something like that, and then I was actually listening to it myself now and then. Is it still going? Is it still?
Oh yeah, they're still going strong, and it's a very, very similar format, except the only difference I think is a little more pedagogical and a little less edgy. It's a little less fun to me to listen to. It's closer to the standard listening textbook with the somewhat stilted dialogues, but other than that, it's quite similar. And there is a site which I recently ran across in English for ESL students. It's all in English, which of course is different because in Pop-Up Chinese the explanations would be in English and the dialogues in Chinese. In this case, everything's in English for ESL students, but it's similar in some senses, and you might want to check it out if you want to see what an English language version might look like. It's called QLips.com, so
okay.
You could check it out. The dialogues are too long, and there's too many unexplained colloquialisms and so on, but it's basically similar with the two presenter format, one man, one woman, lots of banter, cheerful and funny and listenable to someone who's just trying to, basically pick up the language, not as their primary occupation.
Okay, I've got it up in my I've got it up in my second window.
Oh, there you go.
I've clicked on it so that it's appearing in the recording, but you might not see it if you need.
I
want to see it. Yeah, so either I don't know if I'm driving it or if you're seeing me and David and Dave talk, then you might want to. You can click on the window that has the screen share in it. So this is just a way, and that's running on another computer. So anyway,
nice.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, well, the QLips is basically a similar idea, but they just throw too much at you. The dialogues are too long, and it doesn't work on that score. But I wanted to add one more thing, if I may. I started thinking about what potential audience this would work for. This method would work for English. And at first, I couldn't really think of anybody because most people learn English in school, and if they come to the States, they either already speak English, for example, executives, say, who come to the U.S. or Britain, whatever. They probably already speak pretty good English. Or they might be immigrants to the U.S. who just need basics, and they're not, a lot of the humor and so on, the edginess is probably not going to work for them. But then I started thinking about all the millions of working, middle management, white collar people around the world who would really love to improve their English. I'm thinking about South America, for example, Southern Europe, where people often just, they want to learn English, but, they can't kind of get themselves in a position to really learn it. And I think this method would really be attractive to them.
Is there anything in English that is like this that you're aware of?
Well, the only thing actually, that's not true. The QLIPS is sort of like that for people learning English, and there's another one in Taiwan that one of my co-teachers, one of my fellow teachers, turned me on to. I've forgotten, and it's been around a long time. Part of it has that format, but it's much more of a classroom online type of thing. Still harkens back to the traditional classroom, but it does have some of the fun dialogues and the two-teacher format and the explanations.
I hadn't understood that the QLIPS is an English learning website. Of course, it's right here. There we go.
Right. QLIPS is for people learning English, and the explanations are also in English, which kind of removes one of the big advantages of pop-up Chinese, which is you get to hear especially at a lower level, you get to hear the explanation in your own language. Some people think that's bad, but I personally think it's extremely good.
What do people in the chat here think about learning languages? I mean, well, I think obviously Dave likes the Chinese pod approach and the pop-up Chinese. He's entertained by that. He's drawn to it. He's learning. He's picking up some Chinese as it's explained, and he's motivated to go there, and so therefore he's learning some Chinese, and he's able to use a few expressions in class. And but I suppose if you're really trying to learn a language, it's at some point you're going to have to jump out of the pool and into the ocean, and actually mix with the language and immerse yourself into it. And something like QLIPS sounds like it might be good for that. You were saying that it might be a little bit overwhelming for students as well, but for a student maybe who, of course, I suppose that you can find language in so many places on the internet. You could go to if you wanted to learn Chinese, you can go to Chinese websites and try to interact there. I don't know. What do you think about in the chat? My question was really, what do you think about that approach where you're mixing languages, where you're code switching? Because I don't know Arabic that well, but I mean I am at the point where it's not helpful for me to be hearing Arabic and English at the same time. It's causing me to go back and forth, and I'm benefiting from just absorbing the Arabic. So what do you think about that?
For me, the key is comprehensible input, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
I+1.
Yeah, if you're able to understand what you're listening to or watching, then that's great. And if you need some prompts or something, it's interesting. You know about my recent demonstration my friend Kanti Seeley did with for my teachers that I've been training with TPR storytelling, in which translation is used actually quite a bit to make sure that everybody understands all the time. And so I used to be quite averse to translation, but I can see the purpose, the utility of it sometimes. But like you said, if your language is good enough, in general, that you don't need to hear translation or see it, then it would depend on having material that is maybe just help, like I+1 you just mentioned, Vance, that would make you reach just a little bit, but mostly would be comprehensible.
Yeah, I agree with Robert. Although I do speak French because I've been living here for so long, from time to time, I try out languages just for a day or two, like Portuguese or Italian, anything that I don't know, just to remind myself what the hell the learner has to go through. So in order to try to better design my own stuff for teaching English. So when you first said understandability of the matter, that rang a bell in my mind. And how to make stuff understandable for even for beginners.
Right. So
And,
yeah,
most sites
ideally,
most sites for learning English.
Ideally,
Yeah, go ahead.
there's a lag. I was going to say, if you have, if you're going to appeal to people at different proficiency levels, regardless of the target language, it would really be good to have, the material obviously be appropriate for those levels, and I don't know I don't know how much. I want to hear what you were about to say.
I was just going to mention the fact that it seems to me that there are millions of true beginners for all the languages of the world except for English. I'm exaggerating, but it's hard to find a true beginner in English, and it's very easy to find a true beginner in the rest of the world. It's very easy to find real beginners in America or in North America or in England or in Australia, etc., than it is to find a real beginner who's learning English, if you know what I mean. And that's something I also try to take into account because I've been criticized for making things too easy when I wanted to teach real beginners basics of English.
Yeah, I should point out that
which
the
is not the case
advanced.
for me learning Chinese.
No, I totally agree with you, Mike. Everybody knows some English, although some of my students, you really got to wonder. But I asked them the other day, I said, you guys have all had like 4 or 5 years of English in high school and junior high, right? They'll go, yeah. I said, well, how come you don't even know what a noun is, or you don't know how to put S on the third person? And I said, I just joking. I said, what were you doing, sleeping? And they all go, yeah. So now the secret is out. But actually, I believe the advanced levels, I am a ranked beginner in Chinese, and Chinese is a slow process, especially at the speed I go at. But I believe their advanced levels of pop-up Chinese are 90% in Chinese.
Mm-hmm. All right.
One thing is that I think the teachers for something like pop-up Chinese have to be chosen with extreme care. They are basically media stars, if you like. Not just anybody can get up and do what they do. It's a show, and they have to be really, really good. And that's something that I don't think American teachers and course designers, I don't think they understand that very well.
I was just saying that it's so important what Mike was saying, especially as a developer of language materials, and to put yourself back in the position of someone actually learning the language. This is vitally important. That's one thing that we don't. Some of us don't do. You know, so you're in a situation and you're sort of designing courses to teach your language, and you really need to get back into that position where you know, you can understand why you're not inflecting properly, let's say. And if I tried to speak German to you, it would appall you if you were a German speaker, because I just don't sound anything like a native, you know, although I can get nouns and verbs out, you know.
So I don't quite understand your point, Vance. Can you elaborate a little bit, please?
Well, thank you for that reality check. The point is that in order to understand how to design materials like you're doing, to pitch them correctly, you need to remind yourself how difficult it really is to learn language. You were saying that you were criticized sometimes for making your materials too easy, but they're probably quite. If you're in the position of being a learner, then you know that you can't just assume a lot of fluency on the part of the students, which a lot of the materials we create do assume. So you really have to go back into that learner condition in order to you know, to make valid lessons. One thing, when I was learning, I tried to learn Japanese one time, and I used a Plato course. And back at the time, the mainframes were quite popular, and I found I really liked drill and practice, because I needed to learn the alphabet. I needed to learn certain basics of Japanese, which I really don't use in my own teaching, but I found that kind of thing was vitally important when I was trying to learn Japanese. I needed to get back to the stage where something I don't really advise people to use was valuable to me. It's good to have that realization.
Yes, I agree. It's one of the things when I was, well, in my master's program, when I was learning how to teach ESL, and we were going through different language teaching methods, usually being instructed in another language that we didn't understand. I still remember a few words in Turkish from the first audiolingual demonstration that was done, and I was learning Silent Way, and I went to Gatenyo's outfit in New York City, and was taught Japanese by his wife, actually, mainly to have a better understanding of the tools and techniques in Silent Way. And so, yeah, it really humbles you and makes you think, oh my gosh, yes, it's hard work to be a learner.
That's quite a jump, going from Silent Way to the total physical response. Quite cool. You've done the whole gamut, I imagine, Robert.
Yeah, my master's program at SIT in Vermont was pretty thorough in that regard. We did hands-on in like 5 or 6 different non-traditional methods, and cool. I came out of that feeling real strong about Silent Way, not realizing how difficult it is for the average learner. You know, certainly university graduates, people who study language teaching, can be more adept and self-motivated to do the work that's required, compared to my adult, mostly Vietnamese at the time, that I was trying to teach. And I remember putting up the sound color chart and students saying, too many colors, help.
That's funny.
I've got to remind people of another appointment I have in about 7 minutes. So I've got to. There's an EVO session which you're welcome to attend. It's in Blackboard Collaborate Illuminate. I'd also like to tell people that Mike Marzio is joining us. Is it the November 18th or 16th? I can't remember the exact date.
16th, Sunday the 16th.
Yeah, Sunday the 16th. So he's going to be the featured presenter, or conversant, as it were, in talking to people about his work, which is always very interesting to hear about it. So, and maybe we'll get Robert on one of these days as well. You never know. He's
Yeah,
already Berkeley to Boracay.
Yeah, right. I have to try that once or twice more. No, I think, yeah, Ben, I'll just mention that I just got the email actually from somebody else in Webheads about the Electronic Village events that is still possible to get in on for Toronto. And so I might just share my experience, and maybe, I don't know, since my class has ended now, unfortunately there's no time to do a follow-up. But let's go back to I think we should go back to David to
wrap up.
Wrap up before we have to close.
Yeah, I'm sure this is nothing like your CATESL presentation is going to be. I know you're going to practice it, but maybe you made a few points that or benefited from the exchange. Is there anything that you didn't get to say that you are definitely going to point out at CATESL?
Well, that's a good question, but I don't know. I think I'm going to play it by ear when we get there. I have to read the faces of the audience.
Once a webhead, always a webhead.
Yeah, but I do want to thank you all for coming. I really appreciate it, and I got to say my little spiel. And I'm wondering, Vance, two things. Can you give us the link to that EVO conference? And secondly, is there a way to get email notification of upcoming webhead talks?
Email notification. Yes, well, email notification. I do have a Learning Together Google Plus community, and you could join that, and then we announce events there. And I think you do get. I don't know if any of you are members of that, but I get emails. I got an email reminder today.
And then there's the good old Yahoo group, of course.
That's true. Well, I do. That's right. You can join the Yahoo group. Thanks for mentioning that. I should have thought of that straight away. But that's actually our original communication tool. If you want, I can send you links just privately when I send you the link to this recording. But I think probably the Google communities, and there's also a Facebook group for Learning Together, and there's also webheads. But anytime I create a Hangout, I always share it with the Google communities, with the Learning Together Google community. But I don't do that in the case of if it's not a Hangout. So you really, in a way, kind of have to go to. I've got a tiny URL for it. I'll just stick that in the text chat. But anyway, I'll put that there in a minute. tinyurl.com/learningtogether, and that takes you to the next event. That's probably the easiest way to find out about the next event. So I'm typing now. Okay, well, if no one else has more they want to add, and I'm just finishing off this. Okay, that should
just say thank you to David, and nice meeting you all, both David and Mike, and look forward to joining Mike on November 16th. That should be fun and interesting.
Well, thanks.
Yeah, indeed.
Me too.
Okay, nice meeting you guys too. Seeing you again.
Okay.
Thank you, Vance.
Sorry to have to cut it off so soon, so quickly. We almost never stop at the top of the hour, but I've got to pop over to that EVO meeting. And by the way, at the tiny URL, that's where you should go to find that EVO meeting. So if you go to tinyurl.com/learningtogether, click there. This is the second item down now. Yours was the first, and you can pop in on the event there.
Very good.
Okay.
Thank you, Vance.
Yeah, there's also an IATEFL conference going on right now, and they're, I think, in the closing part of it.
Too many great things to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Really.
See you soon.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.